Welcome back to Wild Outdoor Living. Today we're going to be talking about how to build the ultimate budget commuter bike. So this isn't just going to be a cheap bike that you can ride around town. I'm going to show you guys the things that you might want to have on your bike to have it be really set up for commuting, getting to and from school, to and from work, maybe even going grocery shopping. This is really a setup that maybe you could use to replace your car, but we're going to try to keep it on a budget. I'm going to show you what I did for my bike, but I'm going to explain a few different ways you could do it for yours to make it maybe a little bit nicer or a little bit less expensive. All right, let's jump into it. Okay, so this is my 1990s Diamondback Outlook. This is just a basic steel frame and then a bunch of different parts bolted onto it. So I was able to find this bike in pretty bad shape, really just wanted the frame. So I basically stripped the entire thing down. And that's the first recommendation I would have for you. If you're trying to build something on a budget, go to a thrift store, a DI, Goodwill, find a bike that is in pretty rough shape. Maybe get it for 10 or 20 bucks at the most. Something that's fairly old, but strong. Definitely check your frame for cracks or anything, or any issues like that. And if you can get it with as many working components as possible, that's going to save you more money in the long run. But if you just grab a frame as is, you can still build up a really nice bike for only a few $100s. One of the mainstays for a budget commuter is the drivetrain, really making drivetrain choices that are going to save you money. So a single speed setup is definitely going to be the least expensive, especially over the long run. You won't have to buy anything to set up the drivetrain initially. You just need a crank bottom bracket and a rear wheel with a single speed freewheel, or perhaps you could go fixed gear. So there's a lot of cost savings there. There are definitely some maintenance things that happen with single speeds. They are not immune to mechanical failures. They have issues just like geared bikes do, but that is one way you could definitely bring the cost down. Another way would be to use budget geared components, 8-speed, 9-speed, some alternatives to some of your more expensive drivetrain options. And one more thing to say about the drivetrain, you'll notice the crank is actually pretty nice. It's a fairly expensive crank. It's not one I would recommend you put on your budget commuter. I wouldn't recommend you go out and buy one for it, but I already had it lying around. So using parts that you already have is a great idea. When you're thinking about doing your build, think about what you already got in your parts bin if you've gotten to that point in your cycling career, and try to use things that you already have in your possession. So one of my favorite things on this bike is my Wald Basket. This is definitely one of their larger ones. They do make smaller versions, just depending on what you need. But I really like the Wald Basket because it doesn't require full rack mounts for the front. You get all your stuff right in front of you where you can just grab it and go. You don't need special pannier bags or any sort of special cycling equipment. You can get your backpack off your back, throw it in the basket, or if you drop off at the grocery store and you haven't brought bags with you, for instance, you've always got that basket on there and you can load up with your groceries for the day. So really super versatile. These are fairly inexpensive, $20 to $40 or so, and you can even find them used. Wald has been making baskets for a very, very long time. So these are a great option. I know my Surly rack that I use on my Surly Krampus, I think that one retails for $150, and this can carry basically the same amount of weight and it already has the basket. That rack, of course, is just a rack that then needs things attached to it. So for a budget commuter, it may not be the prettiest, but I think it's got a classic look and very, very versatile. Something I would really recommend getting is a pair of fenders. I was resistant to fenders for a long time and I got away without them. There's a lot of other ways to keep yourself dry, at least partially. So I got away without having fenders for a long time, but since this was a dedicated commuter bike, I decided to finally get full coverage fenders. And like you've probably heard everywhere, they are a huge game changer. If you're trying to get around in your dress clothes or non-cycling clothes, it's great to not be soaked when you get to your destination. So full coverage fenders, front and rear. These are the SKS Fenders. Not super expensive. There are cheaper options. There's also more expensive options. But I would absolutely recommend getting a pair of full coverage fenders. And that goes back to when you're looking at your frame, looking at the bike you're trying to get a hold of, make sure it's got the mounts for those fenders. So you've got mounts down here on the back of the chain stay, seat stay area. You've got a mount there in front, or in front of the tire behind the bottom bracket. And then you typically would like to have a brake bridge there if possible, but there's different ways to get them on. There are adapters as well. So getting full coverage fenders, highly recommended. There's a lot of beautiful aluminum bars out there. We can take a look at these Bond triggers, for example. And you know what? They are great on most bikes. And if you're getting a modern bike, that's probably what you're gonna get. 31.8 clamp, 35 millimeter clamp if it's on a bigger mountain bike. That's usually what you're gonna see. You can save a lot of money by grabbing just some very basic steel bars. I decided to go chrome, but they also make these in black, usually in about a 25.4 clamp diameter. Actually gives you a little bit more flex out of the bar, so rides a little bit nicer, and they are not very expensive at all. So you can get brand new ones so they look really clean, or you could find used ones as well. On this one, I decided to go for a pretty basic bar with a lot of rise. That's what works well on this bike because the stack is quite low. If you're on a more aggressive bike, you might be looking at a different bar option, but inexpensive steel bars are a great way to go for your budget commuter. Of course, you're gonna want lights. You could go the dynamo route. You know, I just go with the battery operated option. These have worked great for me for a very long time. You guys have probably seen them on the channel if you've watched me for a while. These are the same lights. I've never had to replace them. So battery operated works just fine for me. If your commute is longer, dynamo might be a good option. These Continental traffic tires are a great hybrid tread option. So great on gravel, but a pretty solid center section. There's a lot of different tires like this out here. Continentals are maybe a little bit more expensive than some of the others, but I've been really pleased with them so far. Now I will say, you know, tubeless is awesome. I have tubeless on every single bike except for this one. And so many of you might be tempted to go tubeless. You'll probably save quite a bit of money to just set these up non-tubeless. But if you do live in a very thorn-rich area, you get a lot of punctures, over time it is probably going to be cheaper to go tubeless. And you can get tubeless set up on these rim brake rims. The last thing I would recommend is a kickstand. And if you're going to get a kickstand, preferably try to get one of these two-legged ones, center mount. These hold the bike up a lot better, especially if you've got a basket full of groceries. Even these kickstands here will struggle with that much weight. And so getting one of these as opposed to just a side mounted kickstand is going to be preferable. You do not need to have a kickstand. I have one on here because I pull a kids trailer occasionally, and it just makes my life so much easier to not have to lay the kids over because it is a single wheeled trailer that I pull. So that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. For you guys that have been subscribed for a long time, I really wanted to get this video out. We've been really busy trying to get ready for the move. We're actually moving back down to Arizona here in about a week. So big change for us. There's definitely going to be a lot of big changes for the channel as well. I hope to do more videos and give a bit of a different perspective than I have before. And of course, my video making time will be a little bit longer, but we'll still be up in the mountains, so there's going to be some snow season to deal with. But if you guys are interested in that, be sure to subscribe. Lots more videos to come.